Hey, so welcome back to the podcast, the Pulse podcast. Today, it's myself and Pranesh. If you watch the intro, you would have probably seen us in the same clothes. So we literally just did a 5 minute no change. And yeah, we pretty much today going to speak about, in our first episode, we're going to talk about special birds. So what is like, well, what are special birds to us? Like how these special birds pretty much like, I guess, appear, where they're from, all of those type of things, what makes up a special bird. And generally it's very personal. But yeah, we will just talk about like special birds that are also like in the community and stuff like that. So yeah, again, I'm here with Pranesh, I'm PJ. And yeah, I think let's jump straight into it. So I think Pranesh, like maybe you can tell us in your definition, like what makes up like a special bird for you?
So I think it's a definition that's changed over time. I think,
Yeah.
like you say, it's very personal. So for me, like I said in the intro as well, the African paradise flycatcher was a special bird because it's one of the very first that I noticed, I identified, because someone sent me a picture of the book, and it's a very pretty bird as well. So whenever I do see it, it is very special to myself, but it is a more common bird maybe that other people may not view as special. It's a very pretty bird,
Yeah.
to see flying through the bush. But yeah, I think there are some different almost filters you can apply to birds that can make them special. Obviously, you're going to start birding at some point. So for me, that first bird was very special. But a lot of the birding I did subsequently was either in my back garden where I had things like amethyst sunbird come through, crested barbets. So it's learning how to identify the birds and working through your list, and then I think as you get more and more birds on the list, you start looking for birds that are less and less common,
Yeah.
because I think that's how it works most often. There are people who will start off and their first bird is something that's super rare, like a pelt fishing owl, which I've heard happen where people get into birding because now they've been told you've got the super rare bird on a safari, and then they start taking interest into other birds. So, yeah, I think it like you say, it's a very personal journey, and each person has their own definition of it. I don't know about you, PJ. What's your thoughts on the special birds?
Yeah, I think with special birds, it also comes down to the fact that I think we even have like almost a special bird for Bafuri / Madaleke concession, where it's a Meave starling that's calling above us. And they only pretty much occur in this area of South Africa and then north into, I guess, Zimbabwe. And I guess like when it comes down to special birds, I would say it's very focused on maybe like Pranesh mentioned, like maybe birds that you're not seeing frequently. Maybe you only see them in the bush. So a lot of people, they come to the bush and they see lilac-breasted roll and they're like, oh, this is an amazing bird, but like they don't see it at home, right? So yes, it's common in a certain area and it's uncommon in other areas. And I think area-specific birds kind of do that to us. Other birds that do, I would say, that are kind of like special could be like migrants. So some birds, they don't stay in South Africa the whole year. They pretty much will either come here in summer because there's obviously lots of food and fruit and stuff, and to breed maybe. And then they'll go back to a different country on the other side of the world even, to go and pretty much like stay there and obviously have food and stuff like that. So I think they pretty much birds are migrating. So when a bird does pitch up in the country, it's like wow, like I need to like pretty much see this, and there's only a small window of time you can pretty much see it per year. So that kind of like I would say also constitutes a special. But yeah, I mean, there's obviously just like special species, I guess, that
Yeah.
are hard to find, rarities that people would say this is a super difficult. But like you said, pulse fishing
Pulse
owl
fishing only.
is one of those things I've heard people look for it for 20 years and they
Yeah.
don't find it. And then you get people that literally start birding and their first bird is the pulse fishing owl. And you're just like, wow. So definitely a personal journey. But yeah, like if you had to say like what work, if you had to give a bird right now, that kind of like, I would say, I think you always call it a bogey bird. Bogey bird slash special birds. That has kind of been part of your journey. What would some of those species actually be?
Okay, so I think, and I had this debate with Prashin when we came up last year to Punda. So we did a big birding day in Punda, and the bird that had eluded me up to that point, I'd say for maybe 3 years, maybe even 4 years before that, was the dwarf bittern. And the dwarf bittern is a special bird because they can be very skulky, so they can, hang around the reeds and things like that. They're only here in the summer, and they sort of follow the water, so they need the water, to be at certain levels, and then they occur there. So for me, I think I went out to Walter Sisulu when it was reported there. This was still maybe a bit earlier in my birding career, where I wasn't going out to places like Sachels Drift or these special places where you get the special birds more frequently almost. So I went out to Walter Sisulu when it was there. I think I went out to Red Flay when they'd reported it, at certain spots in Red Flay. And then I also went out to Murrayvale in search of this dwarf bittern. I think it was frustrating because at Walter Sisulu, I could see a bird walking in between the reeds, and it was, for me, not enough to identify it as the dwarf bittern, even though other people in the hide were sitting there and saying, there's the dwarf bittern. It did not pop out clearly to say, here's the distinguishing features that can then positively identify it as the dwarf bittern. So on the big birding day last year, we drove up to Pafuri, and in the pans around Pafuri, we got a dwarf bittern that we flushed. So as the truck passed, it took off from the reeds it was in, and it went across and sat on a nice perch across the pan. And I was able to get photos and see it clearly and finally call that.
Yeah.
I think for you, PJ, what was your bogey bird?
Oh,
Have you seen it, and are you still looking for it?
Yeah, well, I think that's the thing. So I didn't have many bogey birds. I just wanted to see some special birds. So I think in your birding journey, you get to a point where, like let's say for South Africa, we have an X amount of kingfishers. And let's say with the owls, we have 12 owls, and you want to see all of the owls, right? So you get to the point where once you've kind of like seen about 80% of them, you're like, oh, okay, cool. I just want to like see the rest of them. The last two or one or whatever and stuff like that. So then those are the birds that kind of became important to me, like bogey birds and special to me. So one of the birds is obviously the half collar kingfisher and the rackettail roller. So the rackettail roller is a very rare bird, which only occurs in certain areas of South Africa, in this area where we are at the moment. So we're looking for it for the last few days. Still haven't gotten it. Like count our fingers, maybe we still get it by the time this episode drops. But pretty much there's that one, and then there's like the half collar kingfisher, which is my last kingfisher. A lot of people are always looking for mangrove kingfisher in South Africa. And then they realize that and then I just saw it by luck in Shluwi, in Folozi. It was just there, like it just popped up. I took a photo. I checked on groups and stuff. I sent the photos to some people just to make sure. At that point, I was also a very new birder, novice birder. And again, I managed to tick that off. I really enjoyed the sighting. But now I'm like, oh, I really, really want this half collar kingfisher. And this half collar has just been eluding me because I keep going to all the spots. I see it somewhere. Pranesh and some of our other friends keep sending me like, hey, it's at Walter Sisulu. We get to Walter Sisulu and then like it's not there. Oh, it was here 5 minutes ago. Oh, whatever. So like, I think those can constitute as special birds for me. Whereas like we were looking for Racketerola, but also for pulse fishing owl. I managed to see it the first time I came up to Pafuri.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, again, I guess that constitutes as again like a special specialist journey that you're pretty much on. But also like, yeah, it's sometimes really nice to find special birds for a certain area. And those kind of like rarities and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think one of the things you do as you get your list higher and higher is you start birding almost with purpose. So for me, initially birding was I'm in a location, let me see what birds I can see.
Yeah.
And over the last, I'd say, year and a half, it's become I need to go to this location to get this bird
Yeah.
that I need that's only in that location or is more frequently seen in that location. I think that's the reason why we came on the Big Birding Day last year. We came up to Punta Maria knowing that they may come up to Pafuri as part of the day, and we got very lucky because there's a spot where you get the racquetail rollers that PJ has been looking for, and we drove up to the spot, and before the truck even had stopped, Prashin picked up that there's the roller sitting nicely on a tree next to the road, and that was a lucky sighting. I've since seen it again on my own where I was up here in November and I saw the two adults with rackets on the tail. The first one we got was a juvenile. So yeah, it's a very rare bird that is special in seeing it, and for me was a special occasion to see it. But I have to say that I was lucky in getting it as well. Extremely lucky to get it on almost, well, it was the very first time we visited that spot, and we hadn't even stopped at the spot and we got the bird. So that was extremely lucky. Unfortunately now I'm struggling to get myself the Pels fishing owl that PJ's already got. So I've got something that PJ doesn't have. He's got something that I don't have. So yeah, it's hopefully this evening we're going to go out towards where they can occur and have been seen, but not in the last 2 years, I think the guide said. So we cross our fingers and we hope.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think also, I mean, obviously to reiterate that, like, I think all birds are special. So depending on your journey, where you're at, and at the end of the day, I think like we say, like you can go to KZN in summer, and you can find insane birds. There can be birds that you run around. You run around like a forest because it's calling, and you're just trying to figure out where this bird is and stuff like that. And then there can be situations where you just wanna you just really like this bird, and you just wanna enjoy it every time it appears on a branch, and that's kind of a bird that's special to you. So definitely in terms of like it's all very personal, and I think birding is technically one of those like hobbies or things that people do that is pretty much like
it's for you to define it almost. It's
exactly.
There's no rules or set rules. There are a few rules in terms of like how you, well, I'd say not rules so much, but ethical birding and things like that. And maybe we can get into another podcast on like what you should and shouldn't be doing when you're birding. But you define your list, you define how you actually count birds. I, for instance, can hear a bird and if I positively identify it, I can count it towards my list. PJ, on the other hand, may want to take a photograph before he lists a bird. So it is a very personal journey. And yeah, the birds that you count as special birds can sometimes be, super rare, even what we call vagrants sometimes, where the birds get lost and are seen for the first time in the area. So those could be defined as special birds, but it's also up to you to define your own birding journey and what you feel is special and what's your favorite birds almost in the bush.
Yeah, I think speaking on vagrants, even I think again early in my birding career, I was down in KZN looking just for birds of KZN. First time I was there, and I was staying at a lodge, and there were a bunch of birders there. So I was just chatting to them, and they specifically came there for buff-breasted sandpiper. And I was like, I don't know what that is. I haven't gotten to the point where I knew the sandpipers and all of those type of things. I was just kind of like, hey, I want to see some birds of KZN, just kind of like add some new birds to my list. And this person was telling me, like, you have to go and see this bird. It's not going to be here again. You don't know how long it's going to be here or like when it's going to be here and all of those type of things. Apparently, it was the only seventh time that it's been in KZN area. And buff-breasted sandpiper is not a bird that actually occurs in South Africa. I think it's like it just flies maybe through South Africa on its way to South America or something like that.
To the Arctic,
Antarctic, to
possibly,
Antarctica
yeah.
and stuff like that. I guess we'll have to fact check where it comes from and stuff. But like, it just kind of got lost here. And yeah, and there has been other records of it being around, but like it's not a bird that actually occurs here every single year or any of that. And I went to go see it, and yeah, we spent some time. It was just me and my wife with somebody else that was there, and we just sat and we spent time with the bird. It was really, really awesome to find. But I mean, I didn't know about it, and I just knew that everybody was crazy about it because it was the special bird. But again, I guess we just spent time with it. And when you tell people like, "Hey, I've seen the best buff-breasted sandpiper," people are like, "Oh wow! Like, where did you see it? Was it South America?" And I'm like, "I haven't been to South America yet. Like, actually saw it like just out in KZN." And yeah, it feels special. It feels more special now because other people talk about it. But like, at the time, it was just like, hey, this is really cool. Like, and it's more like the background story of the bird, and like that kind of like also gives a bit of, I guess, yeah, character to like the journey of, or like at least like the capturing of that bird when you see it for the first time, and then just saying, oh, like just spending time and enjoying the bird in its behavior and in this habitat that potentially you might not actually be seeing. But I mean, we'll talk about vagrants and stuff like that also.
Yeah, I think we'll have to do an episode on twitching, and vagrants and lost birds, and yeah, I think maybe we can separate special birds and vagrants, where
Yeah.
vagrants are special in that they're so rare. I think the one I tried to get was the rufous-breasted heron that was in a pan close to Pretoria. And I was there, and I turned around for a moment, and the bird popped up behind me, so I missed it completely. So it's a special story, but without the bird. Yeah, I think we'll get into that in more detail in subsequent episodes as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think, yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, I think, yeah, let us know what your special bird is in the comments. I guess share your stories about like a bird that you find special, or that like special behavior or something that kind of just like you enjoyed. And then I guess people can obviously have a chat in the comments about it. But yeah, like we pretty much going to be doing these episodes. And it's great for you to come along. But yeah, I guess, Pranesh, any last words on this?
Yeah, I think maybe in the next episode, tune in and hopefully we'll have the pals on the list.
Yeah.
Or the rackettail roller. Whoa.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
Whatever
We'll see.
comes will come. Yeah.
We'll see, and if we don't, I guess we will come here for another 14th, 15th time to the Madaleke concession to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I guess we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.